At the height of the pandemic back in 2020, I decided to watch every single Godzilla movie and other kaiju movies set in the same universe or continuity as Godzilla. That meant monster movies like King Kong, Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah, the list goes on. And as I was watching these movies, I was also posting videos every day on my initial reactions to it. And I must say, those videos of mine aren't really that good. It's admittedly boring to watch because I just don't really know how to speak my mind on the fly. I still don't, honestly. Plus, I never really got to finish watching all of the movies back then and stopped just before the Millennium Era kaiju movies. And so years later, I've decided to revisit this idea and rewatch the very first Godzilla movie from 1954. To give a very brief summary of Godzilla 1954, it's a black and white film about a 50-meter tall dinosaur-like monster that lives in the bottom of the sea, who starts wreaking havoc towards a bunch of boats near an island, who later wreaks havoc on the island, and then much later in the film, just straight up destroys an entire city. The monster is called by the elders as Godzilla, and its legend is lost to the younger folks living in Odo Island, except for the elders of the village. One of the elders even mentions an old ritual of sacrificing a woman for Godzilla every time there's a famine of fishes in the sea. The first part of the movie kind of plays out the premise of the story within the paradigm of a classic folktale. You've got the legend of a monster living somewhere near a rural village, the slow but increasing number of evidence that supports the existence of the monster, an elder of the village character who tells the tale of the said monster, and then the eventual reveal of the monster that was once just an old tale told to scare children in the night. And as the first part of the movie ends, you'll notice a sudden shift to the perspective in which the story is being told. From a superstitious belief of a monster looming in the night, a research team is sent out to Odo Island to investigate the strange phenomenon. And from here, in the second part, the movie becomes something you typically find in classic science fiction stories. A scientist by the name of Professor Kyohei Yamane and his team head out to the village that Godzilla recently attacked and discover massive amounts of radiation in the running waters of the village, as well as clear signs of large footprints of Godzilla itself. The monster finally reveals itself to the people of the village in broad daylight, and panic ensues as they try to get as far away from Godzilla. Godzilla returns to the ocean, and here is when the true face of the movie is revealed. Professor Yamane is a zoologist who wishes to learn from Godzilla by doing more research on the creature in order to learn how it survived so long, since the age of dinosaurs. The massive signs of radioactivity is a hint at the possibility of Godzilla being a byproduct of nuclear testings and atomic weapons. Professor Serizawa, a colleague of Professor Kyohei Yamane, has invented a device that could essentially eliminate Godzilla and bring peace to mankind. The problem is that the device can also fall into the wrong hands and be used as a super weapon by countries against other countries. The ethical dilemma these two professors have is quite interesting to watch in this movie. On one hand, you have a scientist who wishes no harm on Godzilla and wants to learn from this new and undiscovered species. And on the other hand, you have this scientist who has a very powerful weapon at the palm of his hands, yet actively chooses not to use it in fear of it being misused by the wrong kinds of people. But as Godzilla continues his assault on the nation, the two professors reach the same conclusion. If they continue to stand firmly on what they believe is right, more of humanity will suffer because of their callous. Yamane wants to let Godzilla live so that he and other scientists can further study its unnatural features, disregarding the fact that he is seeing countless lives at risk because of the monster's existence. And Serizawa has denied the world of the solution to humanity's impending doom, further adding to the problem because of his indecision to act on what needs to be done. But eventually, the two scientists see the error in their beliefs. Yamane's fascination for Godzilla turns into fear and trauma for the forces of nature humanity can never begin to control, and Serizawa sacrifices himself for the good of mankind, using the oxygen destroyer on Godzilla, disintegrating the monster at the bottom of the ocean. The movie ends with an ominous statement from Professor Yamane, saying that despite Godzilla being the only one of its kind, if nuclear weapons testing should continue, a new Godzilla will inevitably rise again, in the future. It was really difficult to find a way to properly write a script for this particular video. Godzilla 1954 is a film that you can write a 100-page essay about, and you'd still probably have a lot more to say regarding the story of the movie. But to keep things very simple, Godzilla 1954, to me, is a great film to recommend if you're looking for a good starting point for watching Tokusatsu movies. This was very early on in the history of filmmaking, yet it was ahead of its time for the amount of special effects it used and incorporated into a lot of the scenes featuring Godzilla. Godzilla is just a man in a costume, and the city it destroys is all just inside of a miniature model set design. All of the buildings are fake, the planes that fly down and shoot at Godzilla are toy models, the electric fence made out of transmission towers are also just miniature models rigged with explosives and electric wiring. The water is real, but the footage is slowed down so that the waves move in a particular motion similar to actual large bodies of water. But when you're watching this movie, you can't help but suspend your disbelief for just a moment and start to believe that Godzilla is a real threat to the human characters, because you get to see their genuine reactions when faced with such a monstrosity. And the fact that the events of the movie are in reference or were inspired by real events that actually happened in Japan's history is something we really need to think about. If Godzilla had been a dinosaur or some other animal, he would have been killed by just one cannonball. But if he were equal to an atomic bomb, we wouldn't know what to do. So, I took the characteristics of an atomic bomb and applied them to Godzilla. This was from Ishiro Honda, the director of Godzilla 1954. In a lot of ways, if you really think about it, Godzilla is as real as the pain that Japan has endured in its recent history. I'll be rewatching every single Godzilla movie, as well as other Tokusatsu movies featuring Godzilla and other kaijus as well, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Hit the bell to get notified for when another video comes out. This is Elmo's Universe, and I'll see you in the next one.